Another brick fan here with a Lego architecture set. This is New York City, New York, USA. This is set 21028 and was released in January 2016. Has 598 pieces, no minifigures, and cost about $60 when it was released. The Skyline includes the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, the Flatiron Building, and One World Trade Center. Starting with the Statue of Liberty here on the far left, you see that the water is done using clear tiles over the black plates underneath. There is some olive color to represent Ellis Island. And then the base of the Statue of Liberty is all done in this nice tan color, using mostly plates and small stud pieces. There's a jumper there in the middle to keep the statue herself centered, and she is represented by this sand green nano figure. Next to the Statue of Liberty is the Empire State Building, and I like the way they built this one. There was an earlier architectural set of the Empire State Building which didn't have as much detail. It was all done in this same color, but it was built using tiles instead of these grill pieces, which didn't give it very much texture, and I think this looks much better with the tiles. It's a very repetitive build process, obviously putting a bunch of these tiles on it, but I think the end result looks pretty good. Next to the Empire State Building is the Chrysler Building, done in this great clear and white color scheme with a bunch of silver elements there on the top. It looks really good and gives a good impression of the building itself. It being a very white building with lots and lots of windows, as most skyscrapers are. Next to that is the famous Flatiron Building, which is right on the intersection of streets there in New York City and has, kind of a Y intersection. So it is an angled building with a rounded front, which here is represented by a bunch of studs. And then it flares out off to the side there. As you can see off to the left-hand side, it is created with a bunch of slope pieces. They recreated this building quite well in this micro scale, and they do have a full-size architectural model of the Flatiron Building, which is much more detailed. Finally, we see One World Trade Center, which I think looks great in this sand blue and gray color scheme. I think it's a very good look and a nice representation of this great big building and it's a great tribute to the buildings that were destroyed on 9/11. Unlike some other of these Skyline sets, this one actually looks pretty decent from the back. The only exception really being the Flatiron Building, which is extremely plain here in the back. You just see the backs of the plates that are used to build it up. No real texturing there, but all the other buildings look pretty much the same from the front as they do from the back, which is probably a good representation of these buildings because most of them were made to look pretty much the same from every angle. So I like how they built these buildings with that detail on both the front and the back. I mean, most particularly the Empire State Building, where they didn't necessarily have to do all of the grill pieces and texturing in the back. They could have just used large tiles or something like that to cover up the back of the building, but I appreciate how they continued with the texturing all the way around. So you get a decent view of this from the front and the back. Overall, a really nice representation of the major landmarks in the New York City area. As with other Skylines, the scale might not be 100% accurate to have each of these in scale, but I think the way they are represented here on the Skyline give a pretty decent idea of the different sizes of these buildings. One World Trade Center obviously being the tallest landmark probably around New York at this point. And I think they did a good job at choosing iconic buildings and landmarks from the New York City area. I hope that you've enjoyed my thoughts on this architectural skyline. I'm going to get going on another video. Until then, happy building. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to my channel. I've linked my architectural playlist up here on the screen if you want to see more reviews of architectural sets.